In Galactic Standard Year 2457, the orbital surveillance station monitoring Zeta 9 captured an image that would challenge the fundamental principles of the Galactic Alliance. Captain Korix stared at the holographic display, mandibles clicking in disbelief. The image showed a bipedal creature, a human, sitting calmly beside a dying apex predator, one of the most feared creatures in the known universe. Its massive jaws could crush titanium. Its venom could dissolve internal organs in seconds. And yet, there it was, seemingly docile beside this small, fragile being. Zethrol, enhance Quadrant 4, Korix ordered, his four eyes narrowing. The AI complied, and the image sharpened. The human was not only sitting beside the predator, but appeared to be treating it. Small tools glinted in the sunlight as the human worked methodically on the creature's wounded flank. Fascinating behavior pattern. Captain, remarked the ship's xenobiologist, Voss, her translucent membranes fluttering with excitement. According to our classification system, this shouldn't be possible. Humans are categorized as mid-tier prey species. They shouldn't even approach an apex predator, let alone care for one. The Galactic Alliance had operated for millennia on the principle of predatory hierarchy. Species were classified based on their position in the food chain. Apex predators commanded respect and fear. Prey species knew their place. It was the natural order, or so they had always believed. The Council needs to see this, Korix decided, his voice firm despite his inner turmoil. This challenges everything we understand about interspecies dynamics. As the transmission was sent to the Galactic Council, Korix couldn't shake the image from his mind. The human hadn't shown fear, only compassion. And that was the most perplexing thing of all. The council chamber buzzed with agitation. Representatives from thousands of worlds filled the vast amphitheater, their diverse physiologies creating a living tapestry of galactic biodiversity. At the center stood Captain Korix, dwarfed by the enormous holographic projection of the human and the apex predator. "This is preposterous," bellowed Marshal Morak, his massive form rising from the highest tier. As the representative of the Dravak, an apex predator species themselves, Morak's ancestral lineage gave him considerable influence. Clearly, this is some form of manipulation or aberration. The natural order cannot be defied. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The concept of survival of the fittest had been the cornerstone of galactic social structure since the Alliance's formation. Species were categorized by their predatory status, with apex predators holding the highest positions of authority. The image before them threatened to undermine this entire hierarchy. "With respect, Marshal," Korix responded. "Our long-range sensors detected no signs of coercion or artificial restraint. The predator appeared to be voluntarily receiving care." "Impossible!" Morak slammed his armored appendage against the rail. "No prey species would approach a dying predator willingly. It defies evolutionary logic. It must be a trick, perhaps a demonstration of some unknown human technology." Elder Phrixus, a venerable member of the council known for his philosophical insights, leaned forward from his meditation pod. His species, the Cathara, were ancient even by galactic standards, and his words carried weight. "Perhaps," he suggested, his voice like rustling leaves, "we should investigate further before drawing conclusions. If this behavior is natural, it might reveal aspects of interspecies relationships we have never considered." The council erupted in debate. Conservative members insisted that the established order must be preserved, while progressives argued for a scientific expedition to study this anomaly. After hours of heated discussion, a compromise was reached. "Captain Korix," announced the council speaker, "you will lead a research delegation to Zeta 9. Your mission is to observe these humans and determine the nature of their relationship with apex predators. If there is technology involved, you will identify it. If it is behavioral, You will document it. The Council awaits your findings. As the chamber emptied, Morak cornered Korix in the antechamber. Listen carefully, Captain, he growled, his breath hot and acrid. This investigation must confirm the natural order. Any other outcome would be destabilizing for the Alliance. The threat hung in the air as Morak stalked away, leaving Korix with the unsettling realization that this mission was about far more than scientific discovery. It was about the very foundation of their society. The Galactic Alliance research vessel, Empirical Truth, entered Zeta-9's atmosphere 3 standard weeks later. Captain Korix stood on the bridge, watching as clouds parted to reveal a landscape of breathtaking diversity. Vast forests gave way to rolling plains, and crystalline lakes reflected the light of a golden sun. Life signs are abundant and diverse, reported Science Officer Talix, her tentacles dancing across the control panel. Apex predator concentration is notably high for such a biodiverse planet. According to evolutionary theory, this ecosystem should have collapsed long ago. And yet it thrives, mused Korix. Begin scanning for human settlements. The ship's sensors quickly identified a modest compound nestled at the edge of a sprawling savanna. As they approached, they observed various structures that appeared to house different biomes and creatures. It appears to be some sort of conservation facility, Voss suggested, reviewing the scan data. There are containment areas, but they're not typical prisons or cages. They seem designed to mimic natural habitats. Korix's mandibles twitched with curiosity. Take us down. Prepare the first contact protocol. As the ship landed in a clearing near the compound, the research team prepared themselves. Despite centuries of interstellar exploration, humanity had remained largely isolated, focusing on their own world rather than venturing outward. Initial probes had suggested they were a curious but cautious species, unlikely to react with immediate hostility. Remember, Korix instructed his team, observe everything, but do not interfere unless absolutely necessary. Our primary goal is to understand, not to disrupt. The main entrance to the compound slid open as they approached, revealing a slender human female. Her skin was a rich brown, her hair pulled back in a practical arrangement. She showed no surprise at the appearance of 6 alien beings, merely curiosity, and perhaps a hint of excitement. Welcome to Earth Conservation Outpost Zeta, she greeted them in perfect galactic standard, much to their surprise. I'm Nova, the lead veterinarian here. We've been monitoring your approach for the past hour. It's not every day we receive visitors from the stars. Korix stepped forward, performing the formal greeting gesture of the Alliance. Captain Korix of the Galactic Alliance research vessel, Empirical Truth. We come in peace, and with scientific purpose. Nova's lips curved upward. I assumed as much, given all the scanning equipment on your ship. Come in. I imagine you have questions. As they followed her into the compound, Korix exchanged glances with Voss. The human showed no fear, no deference to the apex predator species among their delegation. It was as if she didn't recognize the natural hierarchy at all. Inside, the facility was a marvel of ecological engineering. Transparent barriers separated different habitats, each meticulously designed to support specific species. Humans moved freely between these areas, tending to creatures of all sizes and predatory classifications. This is our medical wing, Nova explained, leading them into a large chamber where several humans worked on injured animals. We rehabilitate creatures from across the preserve, treating injuries and illnesses before releasing them back into their natural habitats. The research team watched in astonishment as a human gently cleaned the wounds of a massive reptilian creature, its jaws capable of crushing bones with ease. The animal remained perfectly still, occasionally making soft, rumbling sounds as the human spoke to it in soothing tones. That's exactly what we observed from orbit, Korix said, pointing to the scene. How is this possible? That creature could kill the human with a single strike. Nova smiled. That's Sasha with Kronos, one of our oldest residents. He was caught in a lightning-struck tree 5 years ago. Sasha nursed him back to health, and now he returns whenever he's injured or ill. There's trust between them. Trust? Echoed Morak's representative, a junior officer named Dravix, who shared his species' conservative views. Between predator and prey? It defies natural law. Nova's expression grew thoughtful. Perhaps your natural laws are incomplete. On Earth, we've learned that ecosystems thrive not just through competition, but through cooperation. Compassion isn't a weakness. It's an evolutionary advantage. She led them further into the facility, showing them areas where humans worked with creatures of all kinds. In one chamber, a human sat cross-legged beside an enormous feline predator, gently applying a salve to its infected eye. In another, tiny prey animals nestled in the palms of human hands, receiving droplets of medicine. What we're witnessing here, Voss whispered to Korix, challenges the entire basis of our classification system. If predator and prey can coexist through compassion rather than dominance, then the power structures of the Alliance are built on an incomplete understanding. Korix finished, the implications sending a chill through his exoskeleton. That evening, as the research team reviewed their findings, heated debate broke out. This is propaganda, insisted Dravix. The humans must be using some form of control technology, drugs, neural implants, something we haven't detected yet. We've conducted thorough scans, countered Talix. There's no evidence of technological interference. The predators are choosing to cooperate. Impossible, Dravix hissed. Marshal Morak will never accept this. The hierarchical structure of the Alliance is non-negotiable. Korix raised his appendages for silence. We are scientists first, politicians second. Our duty is to the truth, wherever it leads us. Tomorrow, we will continue our observations and request a demonstration of their methods. The next morning, Nova took them to a section of the preserve where the barriers were minimal, essentially an open wilderness with observation posts. This is where we conduct most of our field research, she explained. Minimal intervention, maximum natural behavior. As they watched, a human researcher approached a group of massive herbivores. Though not predators, the creatures could easily crush a human with their bulk. Yet they seemed to welcome the human, lowering their heads to receive gentle touches along their massive necks. The key is respect, Nova said, noting their amazement. We don't approach these beings as if we have dominion over them. We recognize them as intelligent creatures with their own lives and wills. We offer help, but never force it. And the predators, Korix asked. How do you approach them without becoming prey? Nova's eyes sparkled with amusement. Would you like a demonstration? Before anyone could object, she retrieved a case of medical supplies and led them along a path into a densely forested area. After about 20 minutes of walking, she stopped and made a series of soft, whistling sounds. The research team froze as rustling came from the underbrush. Slowly, a massive predator emerged, the same species they had observed in the original image. Its scaled hide glistened in the dappled sunlight, powerful muscles rippling beneath as it approached. Dravix reached for his sidearm, but Korix stopped him with a sharp gesture. The creature approached Nova, its movements cautious, but not threatening. It stopped a few meters away, head tilted as if questioning. This is Artemis, Nova said softly. She's the alpha female of the Northern Territory. We treated her for a parasitic infection last season. She slowly extended her hand, palm up. Approach from below, never from above. Let her make the choice to engage. To the team's astonishment, the massive predator stepped forward and pressed its snout against Nova's palm. A rumbling sound, almost like a purr, emanated from its throat. She has a young one with a damaged paw, Nova explained, gently running her hands along the creature's jaw. That's why she came when I called. She's asking for help. Asking? Voss whispered, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her fear. You understand their communication? Not perfectly, but enough. Body language, vocalizations, behavioral patterns. They all form a kind of language if you pay attention. Nova spent the next hour treating a smaller version of the predator that Artemis eventually led them to. The young one's paw had been pierced by a thorn, causing infection. Throughout the procedure, Artemis watched attentively, but made no aggressive moves. There's a word in our language, Nova said as she finished bandaging the paw. Empathy. It means the ability to understand and share the feelings of another being. We've found it's the most powerful tool in connecting across species boundaries. On the walk back to the compound, Corix fell into step beside Nova. Your approach contradicts everything our civilization is built upon, he admitted. In the Alliance, predator species naturally assume positions of authority. It's considered the proper order. Nova considered this. And how has that worked for your civilization's development? Are all voices heard equally? Do the designated prey species have the same opportunities as the predators? The question struck Corix like a physical blow. Throughout his career, he had witnessed countless instances where lower classified species were denied opportunities despite their abilities. He himself had been promoted beyond expectations for his species classification, but only through extraordinary effort and patronage. Our system has limitations, he conceded. So did ours, once, Nova replied. Humans spent millennia believing that dominance was the natural order. We nearly destroyed ourselves and our planet before we understood that cooperation and compassion are equally natural and far more sustainable. That night, Corix drafted his preliminary report to the Council. He detailed their observations honestly, including Nova's demonstrations and explanations. He knew it would cause upheaval, but scientific integrity demanded nothing less. As he prepared to transmit the report, Dravix confronted him. Captain, I must object to this transmission. Marshal Morak specifically instructed that our findings should support the established order. We report what we observe, Officer Dravix, Corix replied firmly. Not what is politically convenient. You risk everything, your career, possibly even Alliance stability. Is that worth it for some primitive planet's aberrant behavior? Corix's inner eyelids closed briefly as he considered. If our civilization is so fragile that it cannot withstand the truth, perhaps it deserves to evolve. He sent the transmission, knowing that the Council would convene an emergency session once they reviewed the findings. The die was cast. The following days brought more revelations as the research team delved deeper into human conservation practices. They witnessed humans rehabilitating injured predators, cataloging species relationships, and even mediating territorial disputes between apex creatures by providing resources that eliminated competition. Your species seems uniquely positioned for this work, Voss commented to Nova as they observed a human researcher successfully introducing a rehabilitated predator back into its native habitat. You're neither the strongest nor the fastest, yet you've managed to gain the trust of creatures that could easily kill you. Perhaps that's precisely why, Nova suggested. We can't rely on physical dominance, so we've had to develop other approaches. Observation, empathy, problem-solving. These became our evolutionary advantages. On the 7th day of their expedition, the expected message arrived from the Council. An emergency session had been called, and Captain Corix was ordered to return with Nova to present their findings in person. They want me to travel to your council, Nova asked, when Corix relayed the request. Why? Your perspective is unique and valuable, Corix explained. And, frankly, I don't think they'll believe our reports without direct testimony. Nova hesitated. I've never left Zeta 9. Earth is just a distant memory for our colony here. This could be the beginning of a new relationship between humanity and the wider galaxy, Korik said. Your methods could transform how thousands of worlds approach ecological balance. After consulting with her colleagues, Nova agreed to accompany the delegation back to the Alliance hub world of Nexus Prime. As their ship departed Zeta 9's atmosphere, she stood at the viewport, watching her home shrink to a blue-green jewel against the blackness of space. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she murmured. "From up here, you can't see the boundaries between territories or species. It's just one interconnected system." Korix moved to stand beside her. "Perhaps that's the perspective we've been missing all along." The Galactic Council chamber was filled beyond capacity when they arrived. News of their findings had spread throughout the Alliance, and representatives from all member worlds crowded the tiered seating. The atmosphere was tense, charged with anticipation and unease. Marshal Morak dominated the central platform, his massive form emphasized by ceremonial armor. His four eyes fixed on Korix with predatory intensity as the captain led his team and Nova to the presentation area. "Captain Korix," the council speaker began, "you have submitted a report that challenges fundamental principles of our alliance. Before we proceed, I must ask, do you stand by these findings in their entirety?" Korix straightened to his full height. "I do, Speaker. Every observation has been verified by multiple team members and comprehensive scans." Murmurs swept through the chamber. Morak stepped forward, his voice echoing in the vast space. "These findings are not merely unusual. They are dangerous," he declared. "For millennia, the Alliance has maintained order through natural hierarchy. Predator species provide protection and leadership. Prey species contribute according to their abilities. This system has brought unprecedented peace and stability to our galaxy." He gestured dismissively toward Nova. "Now, based on the behaviors of one isolated colony on a distant world, we are asked to question everything. This is not science. It is subversion." Elder Phrixus stirred in his meditation pod. "Let us hear from the human directly. After all, they are the center of this controversy." Nova stepped forward, seemingly unintimidated by the thousands of alien eyes upon her. She wore simple Earth clothing, practical field attire rather than formal diplomatic dress, yet she carried herself with quiet dignity. "Esteemed Council," she began, her voice clear and steady, "I come before you not as a revolutionary but as a healer. On Earth and our colony worlds, we've learned that true strength lies not in domination, but in connection. The ability to care for all beings, regardless of their place in the food chain, has allowed us to create balanced ecosystems where all species thrive." She activated a holographic display showing footage from the Conservation Center. Humans treating injured apex predators, rehabilitating them, and releasing them back into the wild. "What you see is not control or subversion of natural law," she continued. "It's an expansion of what we understand natural law to be. Evolution favors not just the strongest jaws or the sharpest claws, but also the most cooperative relationships. Symbiosis is as natural as predation." Morak snorted derisively. "Pretty words that ignore biological reality. Predators hunt, prey flees. This is the immutable order of life." "Is it?" Nova challenged. "Then how do you explain mutualistic relationships that exist throughout nature? Cleaning symbiosis where prey species remove parasites from predators, plants that provide shelter for insects that then pollinate them. Even within your own bodies, different organisms cooperate for mutual benefit." She stepped closer to the council dais. "Compassion isn't a denial of natural law. It's an expression of it. The ability to recognize suffering in another being and act to alleviate it. That's not weakness. It's perhaps the greatest strength of all." The chamber erupted in debate. Some council members dismissed her words as naive idealism, while others seemed intrigued by the possibilities she presented. Through it all, Elder Phrixus remained silent, his ancient eyes watching thoughtfully. Finally, as the arguments reached a fever pitch, he raised a gnarled appendage. The chamber fell instantly silent. When the oldest member of the council spoke, all listened. "I have lived for 7 centuries," he began, his voice like wind through ancient stone. "I have witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations across our galaxy. And in all that time, one truth has remained constant. Those societies that thrive longest are not those that perfect dominance, but those that perfect cooperation." He turned his penetrating gaze toward Morak. "Marshal, your species evolved as apex predators. Yes. But did you rise to spaceflight through hunting alone? Or was it through cooperation within your species? Through the sharing of knowledge, resources, and mutual protection?" Morak shifted uncomfortably but did not respond. "The human speaks truth that we have long ignored." Phrixus continued. "Compassion is not an aberration of natural law, but its highest expression. The ability to care for others, even those different from ourselves, is what allowed each of our species to form societies in the first place." He gestured toward the holographic display, where an image now showed Nova sitting beside the injured predator cub, gently bandaging its paw, while its mother watched with what could only be described as trust. "What we see here is not a refutation of evolutionary principles, but an elevation of them. Perhaps compassion is the next step in our collective evolution, not just as individual species, but as a galactic community." The council chamber grew still as his words sank in. Even Morak seemed affected, his aggressive posture softening slightly. "I propose," Elder Phrixus said into the silence, "that we establish a cultural exchange program with Earth and its colonies. Let us learn from their conservation methods, their approach to interspecies relationships. In return, we can offer the technological and scientific knowledge of the Alliance." The speaker called for a vote. After heated deliberation, the proposal passed by a narrow margin. Morak and his supporters registered their objections, but agreed to abide by the council's decision. As the session concluded, Morak approached Coryx and Nova. The massive predator loomed over them, his expression unreadable. "Your ideas challenge everything I have ever believed," he said to Nova. "But Elder Phrixus speaks wisdom that cannot be ignored. I will observe this program with interest." It wasn't acceptance, but it was a beginning. Nova inclined her head respectfully. "That's all we ask, Marshal. Observation with an open mind." In the following months, the wild cultural exchange program took shape. Alliance scientists and diplomats traveled to Zeta 9 to learn from human conservation experts, while human representatives were invited to worlds throughout the Alliance to share their methods and philosophy. Not all were convinced. Traditional power structures resisted change, and many apex species viewed the human approach with skepticism or outright hostility. But gradually, world by world, perspective began to shift. On a cool evening 1 year after their first meeting, Coryx found Nova standing at the edge of the conservation compound, watching the sunset paint the savanna in gold and crimson. In the distance, a family of apex predators moved through the tall grass, powerful and majestic. "The first delegation from the Catharan homeworld arrives tomorrow," Coryx noted, coming to stand beside her. "Elder Phrixus has personally endorsed their participation in the program." Nova smiled. "He's been our strongest advocate. I still don't understand why he supported us so readily when others resisted. The Cathara have the longest lifespan of any Alliance species," Coryx explained. "They see patterns that the rest of us miss, connections across generations. Phrixus once told me that he recognized in humans something his own ancestors recorded from the early days of their civilization, a capacity for what they called the Great Binding." The Great Binding? The ability to form bonds across boundaries, species, territories, even time. Their ancient texts speak of it as the force that transformed them from isolated beings to a unified society. Nova considered this. "On Earth, We'd call that love, in its broadest sense. Not just romantic love, but the love that recognizes the value in all living things. They watched as the predator family disappeared into the gathering dusk, their movements graceful and purposeful. "You know," Korik said thoughtfully, "when I first saw that image of a human sitting beside a dying apex predator, I thought it was an aberration, something that defied natural law. Now I wonder if it's the most natural thing of all." Nova nodded. Caring for the vulnerable, easing suffering where we find it. These aren't uniquely human traits. We've just made them central to our identity. In the years that followed, the Alliance underwent a gradual but profound transformation. The rigid hierarchy based solely on predatory status began to evolve into a more nuanced understanding of each species' contributions. Conservation efforts modeled on human practices spread throughout Alliance territories, leading to ecological restoration on worlds damaged by centuries of exploitation. 10 years after the initial contact, Captain Korix, now Ambassador Korix, stood on the observation deck of the Alliance flagship, Harmony. Below, the first graduating class of the Interspecies Conservation Academy prepared to depart for assignments throughout the galaxy. The class included members of 27 Alliance species, from apex predators to those once classified as mere prey. Most significantly, Marshal Morak's own offspring was among them, standing tall and proud in the uniform of the Conservation Corps. The Marshal himself had gradually become, if not an enthusiast, at least a pragmatic supporter of the new approach. Adaptation is survival, he had grudgingly admitted during the last council session. Even apex predators must evolve. As Korix watched the ceremony, a memory surfaced, himself as a young captain, staring in disbelief at an image of a human sitting beside a dying predator. That moment had seemed like an ending, the collapse of everything he understood about the natural order. Instead, it had been a beginning. On the main screen, Nova addressed the graduates. Now the Alliance's Director of Interspecies Relations, she had become the face of the new philosophy that was reshaping galactic society. "You go forth today not as masters of nature, but as its stewards," she told them, her voice carrying the wisdom earned through years of patient diplomacy. The true measure of an advanced civilization is not its ability to dominate, but its capacity to nurture. In preserving the most vulnerable among us, we preserve ourselves. As the graduates departed for their assignments, Korix found himself standing beside Elder Phrixus, who had become a mentor and friend over the years. "Did you know?" Korix asked. "When you supported us in that first council meeting, did you foresee all of this?" The ancient being's eyes crinkled with what might have been a smile. "I saw a possibility, young friend. The path was there, waiting to be walked. The humans simply reminded us of a truth we had forgotten in our rush toward the stars, that the universe thrives not through force, but through connection." Together, they watched as the first ships departed, carrying the new guardians to worlds across the galaxy. Among them was a small vessel bound for Earth itself, the first official Alliance delegation to humanity's homeworld. A bridge between worlds that had begun with a simple act of compassion. A human sitting beside a dying apex predator, choosing to heal rather than fear. In the observation lounge of the flagship, a holographic display showed the original image that had started it all. Now, a historical artifact. It served as a reminder that the greatest revolutions often begin with the smallest acts of kindness. And across the stars, on countless worlds, new relationships formed between species that had once known only the roles of predator and prey. Life flourished in the spaces between, in the connections that bound all living things together, in what humans called the web of life, and what the Cathara had named the Great Binding, the force that transformed the galaxy, not through conquest, but through care. When asked what had changed the Galactic Alliance's fundamental philosophy, After millennia of hierarchical structure, Elder Phrixus would simply gesture toward that iconic image and say, "They saw a human sitting next to a dying apex predator, and now we all just answer that."